The town of Blackwood Creek was the kind of place people moved to when they wanted to disappear, not literally, but from the relentless hum of city life. Sarah, a graphic designer burnt out by deadlines and concrete, had chosen it for its quiet charm. The ancient gnarled oak trees that lined Main Street, the single general store that smelled of pine and molasses, and the comforting rhythm of crickets on summer nights. She'd bought a small, creaky farmhouse on the outskirts, its porch swing a promise of peaceful evenings. For the first few weeks, Blackwood Creek delivered. Sarah painted, gardened, and breathed air that didn't taste of exhaust fumes. Then the whispers started. It began subtly. Old man Hemlock, who ran the gas station, mentioned his prize-winning pig, Penelope, had simply vanished overnight, leaving no trace but a faint metallic scent on the dew-kissed grass. A week later, Mrs. Gable's entire flock of chickens disappeared, their coop door inexplicably ajar. The townsfolk mumbled about coyotes, but the way their eyes darted to the darkening woods felt like something more. Then came the shadow sickness. It afflicted the young first, a creeping pallor that stole the colour from their cheeks, leaving their lips a ghostly blue. They grew weak, listless, and developed an unnerving sensitivity to sunlight, preferring the cool, dim interiors of their homes. Doc Miller, the town's only physician, was baffled. He prescribed vitamins, rest and sunshine, the very thing his patients recoiled from. Sarah felt a prickle of unease. The air, even in the height of July, carried an unusual chill after dusk, a cold that seemed to sink into her bones. She started locking her doors at night, something she hadn't done since leaving the city. It was during this unsettling period that Elias Thorne arrived. He appeared as if from nowhere, a sleek, dark-haired man with eyes the colour of polished obsidian. He bought the old, dilapidated mansion on Widow's Peak, a place that had stood empty for decades, rumoured to be haunted. Elias was effortlessly charming, his voice a low, resonant baritone that seemed to wrap around you. He spoke of being a reclusive writer seeking inspiration in Blackwood Creek's tranquility. Sarah met him at the general store. He smiled, and it was like sunlight glinting off ice, beautiful but cold. "You must be Sarah," he'd said, as if he'd known her for years. "I've heard good things about your pies." She'd blushed, flattered despite herself. He was undeniably handsome, and his attention was intoxicating. He started visiting her, bringing rare books and exotic teas, his conversations always fascinating, his gaze always intense. Yet there was something unsettling about him. He never ate or drank in her presence, always wore long-sleeved shirts even on the hottest days, and she noticed he never seemed to cast a reflection in the antique mirror by her front door. She dismissed it as her imagination, a side effect of the growing unease in town. The shadow sickness worsened. Sarah's closest friend, Lily, a vibrant, red-haired artist, was now confined to her bed, her skin translucent, her once sparkling eyes sunken and dull. She spoke in faint whispers, complaining of an insatiable thirst, not for water, but for something she couldn't name. One evening, Sarah visited Lily. The room was dark, curtains drawn tight. Lily's hand, when Sarah took it, was unnaturally cold. I feel like I'm fading, Sarah," Lily rasped, her voice barely audible, "like something is draining me." A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. That night she couldn't sleep. The crickets were silent. A profound, unnatural quiet had fallen over Blackwood Creek. Driven by a growing dread, Sarah started researching. The town's small, dusty library held old local histories. She found faded newspaper clippings from the late 1800s detailing a similar wasting sickness that had swept through Blackwood Creek, always preceded by livestock disappearances and the arrival of a mysterious, charismatic stranger. One article mentioned a crimson harvest, a term used by the frightened locals to describe the inexplicable deaths. Then she found it, a brittle, hand-written journal from a former town elder dated 1892. It spoke of the night creatures, the blood drinkers, and the curse of Widow's Peak. It described their aversion to sunlight, their unholy strength, and their ability to charm and ensnare. A chill colder than any summer night gripped her. The journal spoke of a specific ritual, a blood moon that would grant them ultimate power, allowing them to walk in daylight. The next blood moon was tomorrow night. Panic clawed at her throat. Elias, the mansion on Widow's Peak, the missing reflection, the chilling cold. It all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. She had to warn someone. She had to save Lily. That night, under a sky bruised purple and orange by the setting sun, Sarah crept towards Widow's Peak. The mansion loomed, a skeletal silhouette against the dying light. Fear was a bitter taste in her mouth, but the thought of Lily wasting away propelled her forward. She found a broken window at the back and slipped inside. The air was thick with the scent of dust, decay, and something else. Something metallic, like an abattoir. Moonlight, weak and watery, filtered through the grimy windows, illuminating a grand, decaying hall. Then she heard it, a low, guttural sound, followed by a soft moan. It came from the cellar. Heart-pounding, Sarah descended the creaking stairs, each step a thunderclap in the oppressive silence. The cellar was vast, cold and damp, and in the center, illuminated by flickering gas lamps, was Elias. He wasn't alone. Several figures, pale and gaunt, surrounded him. One of them was Lily. Her eyes were wide, vacant, fixed on Elias, who held a silver chalice to her lips. Lily drank, and a faint flush, almost imperceptible, returned to her cheeks, but it wasn't blood in the chalice. It was something else, something dark and viscous. Elias turned, his obsidian eyes locking onto Sarah. There was no charm now, only a predatory hunger. His lips, once so perfectly formed, were now elongated, revealing unnaturally sharp canines. "Sarah," he purred, his voice now a venomous hiss, "you shouldn't have come." He moved with impossible speed, a blur of dark cloth. Sarah screamed, a raw, primal sound that was swallowed by the cavernous cellar. She scrambled back, her hand closing around a forgotten gardening trowel she'd instinctively grabbed from her porch. "You're just in time for the harvest," Elias snarled, his face contorting into a grotesque parody of his former charm. "The blood moon rises and Blackwood Creek will be ours." He lunged. Sarah swung the trowel wildly. It connected with something hard, and Elias recoiled with a hiss of pure rage. It bought her a precious second. She turned and bolted, scrambling up the cellar stairs. Her legs burning, she burst out of the mansion, gasping for air, the metallic scent of the cellar clinging to her. The moon was rising, a swollen crimson orb hanging low in the sky, casting the world in a terrifying blood-red glow. She could hear sounds from the mansion now, a chorus of low growls, the rustle of movement. They were coming. Sarah ran not towards town, but deeper into the woods, away from the impending horror. She didn't look back. She couldn't. The screams that echoed behind her as she fled were not human. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out, collapsing in a tangle of roots and leaves miles from Blackwood Creek. The crimson moon was still high, bathing the forest in its dreadful light. Sarah never returned to Blackwood Creek. She heard later, through hushed rumors and vague news reports, of a sudden, inexplicable epidemic that had wiped out the entire town. They called it a virulent strain of influenza, but Sarah knew better. She lives now in a new city, far from any quiet, charming towns. Every night she checks the moon, and every shadow seems to hold a hidden threat. She's learned to sleep with a silver locket clutched in her hand, and the smell of pine and molasses now brings not comfort, but a chilling memory of the night the crimson harvest came to Blackwood Creek. And she knows deep in her bones that some horrors don't stay buried in the past. They just wait for the next quiet town and the next